is you work in short lengths,
Yep.
short-ish
Oh,
length.
and it looks like we are live. So
So you
okay.
short
Well,
lengths, and instead of like you do with knitting or any of the other things, you're actually working with just a length. So if you pop it and have that broken end,
uh-huh.
when you felt the next piece in, it gives you more surface than
Oh,
another.
okay. So kind of a wet felt, or what is that
Yes.
called? Oh, a spit. Yeah, a spit join. So really quickly, I am Baronesa Ximena from the Barony of Terra, Pomaria, and today I have Eilidh with me, and we're going to be talking about Nalbinding. And I was I was just being informed that I should not actually cut the ends of my yarn. For Nalbinding, it is actually better to pull the yarn apart. I'm working with what is probably not a spectacular yarn for this. I'm traveling, and so it is what I had on hand. But yeah, yes, she was explaining that the knitting and crocheting, we're working with continuous lengths of yarn, but with Nalbinding, it's a little bit different. So the joins are more felted or spit joined. So for those who joined us, that's what we were talking about. And I'll go ahead and turn it back on over to our instructor.
And that's why you use wool, is because you want to be able to felt it together. You can use acrylics. It fights you so much worse. It's weird. I have failed absolutely terribly with acrylic Nalbinding. It is absolutely possible. I know people who are allergic to wool. It's just harder for me to do. And you'll have to learn, like there's the Russian join, and there's a couple of other ways to join it.
Oh.
You can weave the new ends in. But the traditional way is you just use wool, you fray your ends, and you felt them back together. So.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with this join. I haven't had terribly good success with it, but I also haven't. I've always had an alternative, so I'll have to practice a little bit more and look up the. So the Russian join is the one where you take it and you're just kind of weaving the bits up.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. There's also one where it's two knots and you slide them together. The problem with Nalbinding, you don't want to do anything with a lot of knots in it because you're pulling it through your loops.
Mm-hmm.
Your whole thread your whole yarn gets pulled through every loop.
Okay.
So you want a nice smooth pull.
Okay. Excellent. Well, did we want to go ahead and start with the slideshow? Oh boy, the slideshow presentation.
Okay, so the requirements for Nalbinding are super simple. You just need yarn and a needle. It doesn't have to be a special needle. It doesn't have to be a fancy needle. I really like the tapestry needles, which is what is on the screen right now. You can buy them at Joann's. A couple of dozen of them is usually under about $10, $12. So if you lose them, no big deal. I'm always giving them to people. Here, have a needle, try, work it out. I have some lovely fancy ones that are ivory. I have beautiful wood ones. I always end up going back to this basic tapestry needle because it's got the little hook, the little bend on the end, makes it really easy to catch loops and work it through. And it's got that lovely big eye that most yarns will go through without any problem.
That's brilliant. I had grabbed my wooden Nalbinding needle that I had laying around, but I have a darning needle that I bought. So this is great. This is great. Anyway, okay.
Moving on. So my point is, you don't need fancy. You don't need to do fancy, especially if you're learning. My other constant suggestion for Nalbinding is you have to be really stubborn. For some reason, it is not intuitive. It does not make any logical sense. For some reason, it just slides off the back of your head and doesn't want to stick. It's easy. It's really super simple, but it takes a lot of stubborn practice to make it stick and stay. It took me almost a year to be really stubborn about it. I'd get it going, and then I'd forget what I was doing. and I go take another class with somebody else, and then I go, oh, right, it's that. That's what I was doing wrong, and I go back to it. So, maybe I'm just dumb, but if you find this a frustrating process, don't take it personally. Everybody I've taught has a hard time with it the first round, and usually
that's
back 2 or 3 more times just to get it solidified. So
yes, what I was going to say was that that's actually one of the reasons that I was looking for a Nalbinding class for this, because I have had it shown to me and explained a couple of times, but I keep forgetting, and so hopefully this will be the time where it actually sticks.
And I think part of it is you only do the start once, right? The very beginning, you do that start. And there are many different ways to do a start. You can start with a spiral round, which I'm not going to show you because that is so much harder to get through on video. Okay. But teach you how to do a chain start. There's like make a slip knot and all this bull. And I'm like, yeah, all you need to do is go around the end of your finger twice. This is how you start. You go around your finger twice.
I can do that.
Which sits, keep it kind of back over here behind your pinky to keep it out of your way for a while.
Okay.
Tail end, round your finger twice. That's all you have to do to start. Seriously. It'll work its way out. So you pull the top loop down over your thumb and let that second loop, and I'm always sticking my needles in my mouth to talk. And I think that's the next coming slide is the start.
Okay.
Okay, next one. Okay. So I always start it by laying it across the palm of my hand, across those fingers. And that gives you some control over that thread. If it's between your pinky and your ring finger, you go around twice. And then you draw one loop, and it doesn't matter which loop. It really does not matter. One loop gets pulled down over your thumb. The other is kind of allowed to hover between the two fingers.
Okay. Oh, so you're going up and over the top rather than under. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
I don't know that it matters. Just feeling you go around your finger twice.
Okay.
So that you have two loops, right? You can pull them off your finger and you can guide one loop around your thumb and the other one will kind of hover. Yeah, that's the right one. And the other one just kind of hovers between, right? You've got the two, one around your thumb and one that sticks out between the two fingers. And you kind of keep your fingertips together, your thumb and your forefinger together. You don't have to pinch them really tight. Just keep bringing those back to that position, because that helps keep control of the hot mess that shows up on the back of your thumb. And I promise it will be a hot mess for a bit. It would help if I actually threaded my needle. So here's another fun tip. This threading method will work for any needle and any thread. So you turn your eye so that so you can actually see through it. You can see through your eye, right? You run it between your fingertips and you get this teeny little loop sticking out between your thumb and your forefinger. And then you turn your eye so it's reaching the ceiling and you can just push your thread right through. So that's a fun trick for free. Okay. Let me catch up. So one loop on the thumb, one sticking between the two. Okay. So you're going to work from your nose out. This is not going to be like a sewing method. I think that's the first thing we do wrong, is we think we're kind of weaving or sewing. So you take your needle, nose out, and you're going to run it straight through the loop that is sticking out between your thumb and forefinger. So nose out, just stick it right
So when
through.
you say no, nose out, what do you?
Forward.
So okay.
Straight out. Nose out. So you go straight through that loop, right?
Okay.
And then you're going to turn your needle and slide it. This is where it gets messy on the video. But you're going to slide it underneath that loop that's on your thumb. And this is your working thread. Your working thread is going to lie over that. Bring those fingertips back together and draw it through. And as you pull it tight, you should get a second loop that appears on the back of your thumb. So you've got 2 loops on your thumb. It's got to keep disappearing. So you have 2 loops on your thumb, and you've got the one sticking out at the end of your thumb between your thumb and forefinger.
Or you have a knot because you're me.
And if you have a knot, just keep going.
Okay.
Because this hot mess will look like a hot mess for a while, and it's okay. Trust me.
This reminds me a lot of Kitchener stitch, I have to tell you.
Going somewhere, just hang on to the loops and keep going.
Okay.
So I've got 3 loops right now. 1 sticking out at the tip of my thumb, 2 on my thumb. I'm going to take the top loop and slide it off the end of my thumb, right? So then I've got 1 that's kind of hangs out around my thumbnail. And now I have 2 loops behind my thumb, and that hot mess gets bigger. It does. It's a mess. Even when you know what you're doing, it's a mess. It's okay. And then you just repeat. So you're going to pick up the loop closest to your thumbnail on the pad of your thumb. You're going to run nose out through it. Turn your needle, slide underneath the loop on your thumb, underneath the working, and draw it tight. And that'll put a new loop on your thumb, ideally. So now you have 4 loops, sort of. You have 2 loops on your thumb and 2 loops on the pad of your thumb. And the hot mess gets bigger.
And hotter.
And hotter. Definitely hotter. Excuse me. And then you repeat. You slide that loop off the end, the top loop off, run it through, under, draw tight. And you keep doing that until the chain really stabilizes and starts to form. And it will stabilize and form. As long as you've got the through the loop on the end of your thumb, through your thumb loop and down. And every time you pull on it, it's going to try and see, it's a hot mess. It's okay. Don't panic. Don't let this slide around your thumb. You want to make sure it stays right here on the pad of your thumb. Because every time you pull on your working thread, it's going to try and pull it around your finger, around your thumb. And that'll mess you up. So again, keep your gatekeepers together. Just kind of make sure you always have your thumb and forefinger close or touching so that you can maintain that mess back there. It's got to stay here. Stay on the pad of your thumb. And I find I'm terrible at working and talking because I lose my space. So let me.
That's okay.
Pop the top one off. Pick up that loop and slide. And you're going to always run your needle along the inside of the thumb, along this length. This will help keep the hot mess where it belongs, and it'll help draw that loop up where it should end up. You pop that loop off, go through it, through the loop on your thumb under your working thread, and draw it tight. Top loop off. And I'm totally fighting my own bad habit because what I do, see, look, it's a mess. It's okay.
Okay.
I promise. And the cool thing about Nalbinding is you can cut this part off and it won't undo anything. It won't come unraveled for you. It'll just get out of the way. So let me keep going long enough to give myself a stable chain. So I've tangled myself up here. Okay. So the bad habit I was referring to is I am in the rhythm of, as soon as I draw that needle down, I pop my loop off already. It's just my style, but I don't want to confuse you, so I'm trying to maintain the pop it. It doesn't really matter. It's just it hits the right activity for me. So through that loop, under your thumb loop, and make sure this working thread should be lying on top of your needle as you draw it through. And it sits kind of like a U shape across the back of your hand, on the back of your knuckles right here.
So are you working with one thread on the thumb and then one kind of sitting on your pointer finger?
Nope, nothing's on my pointer.
Nope.
It's
okay, so that's just like a tensioning.
Yeah, that just keeps control of it. So that
Okay.
when I pull on it, see if you pull it, when you pull this thread, it wants to walk this mess around your thumb. Yes,
Okay.
everything. But if I give my end a little tug, you can see where the chain is starting to form. And like I said, I can't talk and Nalbind very well at all, but it's starting to show up.
Okay.
So let me work in a few more stitches quick.
That's no problem. I'm probably going to have to go back and watch the video to learn how to start, because it's
This is the best activity if you have cats, because
the best for me or for them?
Them, because these little widgets get thrown off and chucked into the floor and stomped on, and I make a lot of cat toys and I don't even have a cat, so
You're so benevolent.
I am.
The feline overlord.
So yeah, like I always advocate, start with a yarn you don't care about, because you're gonna pop them off and throw them away and make a bunch of knots and a lot of hot messes, and meh.
It's all in the name of learning.
It is, and you'll get there. You will get there, I promise. And I'm always available. I'm always happy to sit down. You can catch me in camp or under the pavilion and say, Eilidh.
And I guess for people who aren't familiar with you, from which barony do you hail?
Dragon's Lair. I was the
Dragon's
Baronesa Dragon's Lair for 8 years.
There we go.
And currently it's Chloe and Ariane. And
yes.
We are in the Kitsap County area. Yes.
I got to shoot the ballista with Arian. It was a lot of fun. And now I want one for my barony.
Yes. We are very popular at On to Your West War with the Kingdom.
I'll bet.
We bring the heavy artillery for the Kingdom.
Oh, goodness. So at a certain point, sorry, circling back, I have the attention span of a cat. So how long do you continue on the chain? Is this similar to crochet where your chain is just like the base? Because you said that you were pulling them off and chucking them away. Is that just to get things
as I go, just because they're messy you can like either pick them out or you can cut them off as you get a final solid chain. I'll let you know when I get to my final solid chain.
Okay. But so it stays a hot mess. Oh,
a good
sorry.
once you've gotten past your hot mess and your stitches have started to behave. Again, I do not talk and stitch well. I don't know why. Let's see.
It's okay.
Your tension will even out, your stitches will even out, and it takes, I don't know, maybe about 10 or a dozen or so. Let's see, this is what you're finally going to get.
Okay.
And this is the basic Oslo stitch where you're picking up one loop at the end of your thumb on the pad, and you've got one loop on your thumb. All variations in Nalbinding come from how many loops you're going to pick up at the end of your thumb and how many loops you've got on your thumb.
I can't even manage two. This is good. But there's hope. There's hope.
But the whole point is once you get a chain going, that's where everything else begins.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the length of your chain depends on what you're making. If you're going to do a hat, then it obviously needs to be big enough to go around your head. If you're doing mittens, then you need it big enough to go around your hand. So once you get the chain long enough, that's really all that matters. Long enough for whatever you're working on. And some of my absolute favorite practice things, let's see. I made a whole set for my bunny.
Oh.
These, a hat with ear holes, I want to point out, and an entire sweater.
That's adorable.
And they're small little projects. And the concept in making something this big is exactly the same as if you are doing something this big.
Oh wow.
So
that's quite a work.
Thank you. I also love making, you can make little, one of my classes was little stuffed balls. So you can go around styrofoam balls if you want.
Oh.
Or you can stuff them and throw them at least.
We never do that.
Never.
I had a backlog of battle bunnies and things got boring.
Like, Easter eggs or balls, or I even do it around pill bottles sometimes. I've Nalbinded around pill bottles and to decorate them and make them look more natural. And just start making stuff. That's the only way you're going to get any good at it. So, and once you get comfortable with the chain, then go for a spiral start, because a spiral start you need for hats, for socks, for mittens. You end up needing, you don't have to have it. You can work from, see, if I did the chain, I could do the chain around the length of around my foot, work my way to the toe, and then you start narrowing in as you go around to the top. There's a little more guesswork with that, but you don't have to have the spiral start down the first thing. You can learn that later once you're comfortable with the stitches. But a lot of people will start you off with a spiral start. And I've done it. I've done that to classes. And apparently I'm very mean. So let's start with two.
Excellent. I like this very much.
Anyway, the other thing I love about Nalbinding is I can throw it down and walk away, and I don't have to worry about counting. I don't have to worry about a toddler coming along and pulling the end of my yarn and running off with it and watching it go, which I've had done.
Mine was a Chihuahua, I understand.
With knitting, you get the wrong end of knitting and somebody is going to die.
Yes. So do you, so the yarn doesn't run away with a toddler or a Chihuahua, but do you have a problem identifying which of the loops is your active loop?
I do not. Okay. I think it's surprisingly easy. Like I said, I just threw this one down. So this is your working end. This is the end where the needle should be attached, which it's not because I pulled it off. But this is your working end, and this is your tail. If I pulled on the tail, the knot is just going to get tighter. Same for this end. So you want to, when you take stuff off your thumb and walk away, you want to kind of loosen your loops up so that it won't knot up by accident. You pick it up, and that tail end, or your working end is going to sit along your thumb where you've had it before. And you take that last loop, which should be loose and goosey. And you know it's the right loop because when you tug, I had the wrong loop on there. Because when you tug on this, that loop is going to tighten.
Okay.
So I'm going to loosen that loop back up. Slide it on my thumb. And see, I've got the right one now because if I tug on it, it tightens down.
Okay, excellent.
My ball has ran away with me. All right, there it goes. So, again, there are a lot of different ways to start. And there are some amazing videos online. There's some lovely Scandinavian women who are teaching Nalbinding on YouTube. And I think once you have the concept of what you're looking for, it's easier to follow along with them.
Okay. And the trick is really just knowing which of the loops is the right. I can't imagine managing more than 2 at this point. But I'm new.
Like I said, you really have to be just stubborn. And I don't know why it's not intuitive because it's super simple. You're just creating loops and then you're working your loops together. That's it.
So since this is very much a matter of stubbornness and continuing to try, what do you recommend for getting past the I've done this 5 times and screwed up every single time?
Do it 6.
Just do it 6, okay.
Do it 7.
Okay.
5-year-olds do this in Scandinavia. We can manage. We'll get there, damn it.
I can knit. Why can't I do this?
You can do this. You will not be defeated.
That's all right. This is Nalbinding, not a ballista that could, do things.
All it is, it's picking up that loop off the pad of your thumb. As I drop my needle.
Okay, I dropped my thread a while, so.
That's right. Throw it in the floor, stomp on it, start again.
Weep a little, yeah.
Whatever you got to do. See there, mine's a little less hot mess this round because I'm not talking quite so much. So what I mean by the number of loops you pick up is I would pick up this one and then I would pick up the next one down. So you're just going deeper into the chain rather than just picking up this loop. I would go deeper down into the chain for other stitches.
Oh, for the more, okay.
It's really just that different. And you can make
Okay.
stuff up. I mean, it probably has a name, but the
Somewhere.
more loops you pick up off the end of your thumb, the thicker and denser your work is going to be.
Ah,
So
okay.
nice thick socks, pick up 2 loops.
Okay.
But master the 1-1 first. Then you can really start playing with it. So pick up 1 loop, go down. All right, let me get a good long chain going, and then I'll move you to the next phase.
Okay.
So I'm going to go for a chain that's about 12 inches. Gives you a good length to work with. It's not too tight for practice.
And that's good because I'm currently working on something that has knitting that has knit front back at the end of it's on double points, and I keep forgetting that that I need to loosen up, and so by the time I come back around to those stitches, it's and because they're knit front back, there's not a lot of loose anything around it to pull, because normally you can just like rob Peter to pay Paul in a situation. But it's not working as well.
Room in Nalbinding for shifting your tension.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I tend to be a loose knitter. So is that tend to be the same kind of correlation where one is a loose Nalbinder or a tight Nalbinder?
Yeah, ultimately, your Nalbinding depends on the size of your thumb. Because that's how big loops are, right? Most of the time.
That's true. Okay.
You don't want to pull it. It depends on the size of your needle, because if you pull your loops too tight, then your needle doesn't go through very easily, and then you're going to damage your wool.
Okay.
So with a smaller needle, you have little pointy thumbs. I can get mine pretty tight if I want it. But where you tension, where you actually actively work your tension, is on that inside of your thumb. Again, by tightening this, the working thread, you tighten that loop on your thumb, right? So then tighten the loop that's on your pad. You tug on the inside, this inside spot of your thumb.
Mm-hmm.
If you tug on the inside of that loop, that tightens the loop that's sticking on the end.
Okay.
So if you end up with, say, let me work it out for you. So if I have a big, loose, messy loop on the pad of my thumb, and I want to draw it back down, if I tug on this part of my loop that's on my thumb, the one closest to the inside of your thumb, the part of the loop closest to the inside of your thumb, if you take your fingertips and just kind of tug on it gently, and then pull on your working thread, it draws everything down.
Okay.
So that's where tension is. All right. I'm almost there. Let me get another few stitches in, and I'll show you how to connect the ends.
With a little bit of spit and rubbing it on your leg? I don't know. That's what I always did.
In a COVID world, we kind of got away from the spit and rub.
I mean, that's legitimate.
I get little spray bottles that you can find them at the dollar store or at Walmart. They're like about that big.
Oh.
They are perfect for this.
Oh, that's brilliant.
First, I have none near me at the point. I went digging for my books too, and I'm like, I don't know where the heck those went either.
I know I have. I have a little booklet that I bought ages ago, but I guess on the same. I not a clue where it is. It's probably with other books somewhere, but that unfortunately does not narrow down much.
So for a historical perspective, I can't remember the name of the author, but it's With One Needle is the title of the book.
Okay.
And that individual has like images of the Coppergate sock and stuff from various cultures. So for an arts and sciences, put your money where your mouth is, this is how it was done kind of perspective, like a really good secondary resource material.
Mm-hmm.
Needle is the name of the book.
Okay. And so is Nalbinding, I know that we associate it primarily with Vikings and Scandinavia. How widespread, do you know how widespread it is or
all over the world.
It was all over the world, okay.
South American cultures did it. The Egyptians did it. It predates anything that the knitters did.
Dang it. It's the lazy part of me that's like, but I can knit. So
yes, and knitting is very easy compared to this. It is in a lot of ways. It goes faster. Knitting works up fast. I think that's probably why, in my opinion, is probably why it got supplanted with knitting, is because Nalbinding does take longer, but null-bound work is way sturdier.
Right.
You can literally work up a piece of null binding and cut it like fabric, and it's not going to go. It won't,
like those Alice.
You get
that's marvelous.
Block, it won't go completely. You're not going to lose the whole piece. It'll just go just so far, and then it's done. It's not going to unravel.
Okay.
So I got my chain. It's a little messy. And now this is a spot that's easy to get confused. I've done it a few times. I'll put it together wrong. So it's on my thumb, straight out. And if you bring it over so that you're not doing any twisting, and you're going to kind of pinch it so that it's setting just below the loop on your thumb. So it's going to look like that. So looking at it, you're going to draw out your strand, your chain, bring it around, and just kind of gently hold it against your thumb under that thumb loop. And I've lost all my tension. So it sits like that. It's not twisted. It's just kind of folded and hung out. And with your needle, what you're going to do is you're going to pick up, I consider, in my own terminology, this side, the top side when you're looking at it, the high side, as the A rail. I think it's how it's in my notations. And then, so you're going to bring it around, and you want to make sure that A rail is still on top when you set it underneath this thumb loop. So you're going to hold them like this, right? I have to rethread my needle.
This is really similar to the problem of winding up with Mobius strips when you're
exactly.
When you're
absolutely precisely. If you twist it, you'll end up with a Mobius strip.
Right.
And then you know what you did wrong.
Yes.
But you see how in the image I've got it brought around, and it's sitting underneath, kind of like close to, but not really attached yet to that thumb loop.
Yeah.
And you can see how the stitches on the A rail, they're all slanting away from the thumb.
Okay.
You pick a spot on that rail. You don't have to start at the very end. You can start where either your measurement is the right length, or for practice, just where you got past the hot mess and your stitches look relatively straight. All right. And then what you do, hi, Max. Is you're going to pick up one of those slanting stitches, just one.
Okay.
And again, it doesn't matter which one at this point, just one of them. So it looks like that.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, Adele's got the picture up from your slides.
Yep, exactly. So you pick up one of those stitches. Doesn't matter which one, pick a spot and start.
Okay.
And then you continue through the loop on the end of your thumb, under the loop on your on that goes around your thumb. Slide the loop up. And now you're attached. See? Now you're stuck. And then you pick up the next stitch in the line.
So is there a way to think about it that's useful? Like, is it replacing one of the other loops, or is it just...
You are building in a spiral around the top.
Okay. My brain works well with comparing things that I already know. So when I keep referring back to knitting, that's part of it, is that I'm trying to understand how it fits in with what I already understand.
In my head, I kind of
knitting.
think of it as train tracks going up a mountainside.
Okay.
Except for you're continuing to build. You're gonna just go around and around.
Okay. With the difference being it's
instead of in knitting where you go back and forth, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You keep going with Nalbinding. And if you actually
so more like crochet
piece, it is infinitely easier to do a big tube and cut it up side than trying.
That's so terrifying.
Because if you went back and forth with Nalbinding, if you're not super careful, make sure you add stitches in and like really pay attention, it will slowly come up to this sort of rounded pyramid if you went back with a Nalbinded piece.
So it's in that way, it's much more like crochet. So yes,
I have no idea.
Okay. I will tell you right now, in this way, it is much more like crochet. I had multiple small capes for small stuffed animals when I was learning, because I'm
telling you, dress stuffed animals, dress your pets, make cat toys.
Excellent.
Don't be afraid to throw things in the floor. It's okay.
Okay. All right.
So in that method, that's how you keep going. You just pick up that next stitch on your A rail that's slanting away from your thumb. And then you continue. You go through the loop on the end of your thumb, down through the loop on your thumbnail, and draw it tight. It's just one more small step. And mine is pretty messy because, again, I can't stitch and talk. But see how, seriously, mine's totally a mess. But you see how they start building onto each other? Mm-hmm. This is the beginning of my chain. You bring them around, and then you just start working your way along. And eventually they just build and go round and round and round.
Okay. That makes sense. And so this is very much like you said, a tubular construction. Okay.
Right. Which is why it's great for socks and hats and mittens.
Mm-hmm.
Because you just go round and round and round.
Okay.
Where the skill comes in for shaping is when you start adding and subtracting stitches. So at that point where you're picking up the loops on, or picking up the stitches on the rail, on the A rail,
Mm-hmm.
if you're wanting to move from like say a cuff of a mitten, and you've worked up to the point where you need to expand it to go further around the palm, and you want your tube to widen out, every stitch that you pick up, you'll go through that twice. So you'll go through the stitch on the A rail, pick up the loop on the tip of your thumb, go through your thumb loop, draw it tight, and then go through that same spot again. So that you have 2 stitches in the A rail stitch, right?
Does that cause any problems with like a gap of any kind, or are you safe just looping?
With 2 stitches.
Okay.
You start adding 3 and 4, and it does really horrible, weird things. That was one of my mistakes. I ended up with like this really lovely, messed up doily. It was great.
But at least you knew, right? You'd learn.
So it's 2 stitches, and then you pick up that next rail, and then you can put 2 stitches into that one, next rail, then 2 more stitches into that. And that's how it gets bigger. If you go to the next, I think the next slide is better. Yeah, you can see how those 2 stitches, those 2 loops are worked through the A rail stitch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that.
So then from that point on, I would go on to the next A rail stitch and put 2 more stitches, 2 more looped stitches into that, and then keep moving down. And that's how you make it bigger. And it's just going to increase. And it's really basic math. I mean, you're adding 2 stitches for every 1 stitch. So it's going to expand twice as quickly, right?
Okay.
If you don't want it to expand quite that fast, then you do 2 stitches, 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 1 stitch.
Okay.
If you, as you go along smoothly, like say you're doing something that is going to expand slowly and smoothly, you go around, you've got 2 stitches for every 1 stitch. The next round the next time you go around that circle, it's going to be 2 stitches, 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 1 stitch. The third time around, it's 2 stitches, 1 stitch, 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 1 stitch, 1 stitch. So you're only putting 2 stitches in every 3rd stitch on the 3rd round. On the 4th round, you put 1 in, 2 stitches in every 4th stitch. And it gives you this smooth, rounded thing, right? That's how you make like a perfect ball.
Okay. Except for then you have to reverse it and then decrease.
To decrease is even easier though, because instead of going through 2 stitches through 1 stitch, you're going to move over 1 of the A stitches and bring 2 of them in together.
Ah, okay. I can do this.
You just pick up 2 stitches instead of 1. And so you're automatically cinching them in as you go.
Okay.
And again, if you want to do it smoothly, you cinch in 2 stitches, skip 1, cinch in 2 stitches, skip 1. On the next round, you skip 3.
Okay. And by skip 3, you mean you do them normally, or
normally.
You just
absolutely don't not stitch them.
Okay.
Just don't bring 2 together all the way.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because I'm positive that I could screw it up. So.
But that's how you make rabbit ear holes. Is you just don't put a stitch in.
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know, because one of my pandemic projects was there are these delightful felted they're felt stuffed animals, and they are the cutest things ever by what's it? Posy Gets Cozy, And so I actually have the beginnings of an apron dress for my bunny, and a delightful little pink knitted shawl. And so maybe I'll do a little Nalbinded hat. So
it's the best way to learn, is to do something small, and then you've got this perfect little thing you can take to class. Different stitches. Let me go back to some of the different stitches. Depending on what stitch you use, there's more spring to it. And God help me, I can't remember what stitch this one is, but I probably picked up several loops, and you see how much more springy.
Okay. So the Oslo stitch tends to produce a more firm,
solid, very solid, not a lot of give, because it's 1-to-1 stitch, or 1-to-1 loop gathering.
Okay.
And see, that's how you make holes, is you just, don't pick them up.
And then the bunny is happy. It's marvelous.
He has a place to stick its ears. It's just, you're really only limited by your creativity. Once you figure out that you're putting tubes together and bringing them in and out, that's all it is.
Okay. So for things like,
I think that's probably the best way to describe it to a knitter. You're working in the round.
Okay. So speaking of, is something like gloves with individual fingers, which I hate with a deep and burning passion myself and normally avoid. But is that something that's feasible with Nalbinding, or is that more?
Absolutely, because you have to put a thumb in, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're doing a mitten or a glove. I've never done gloves. I have little hands, so the thought of all of that bunched up between my wee fingers really makes me wince. Like, I hate toe socks. I know it's heresy. I'm sorry.
I'm with you.
I'm with you. Toe segregation.
How else are they supposed to grow and develop into well-rounded toes if you keep them separated?
Mr. Shanae was going to be like, "Oh my God, Lori."
Can't believe you said that.
And I have this debate all the time. She loves toe.
Everybody has their thing. It's like mittens and gloves. I love the idea of gloves, and then I have to put them on, and they're awkward and they're clunky. And
I love fingerless. It's so easy to do Nalbinded fingerless gloves.
Good. Okay.
So easy. But again, if you look at the hand, think of it in terms of tubes. It's all just a bunch of tubes. Yeah. And you're going to do these separately if you wanted to do fingers. So you're just going to you just stitch them on like you would anything else.
Okay. I think I'm just having trouble. Oh, not trouble, but my brain is struggling to reconcile the very large loopy thing with the kind of tight, dense fabric that you would have around, your fingers or something like that.
Yeah. Like this is essentially the Coppergate sock done. Mm-hmm. Like I redid. I copied the Coppergate sock. So tubes, right? Tubes. You just go round and round and round and round. And where the round and round and round stops is when you stop going round and round. And then you just add a new piece to it. So my heel portion is actually a separate null-bound part. Oh. That when I get to the point that it's time to attach them, I just null-bend them together. So if you can think of all of your projects in terms of whether they're domed, like for a heel or the top of your head, or whether they're going to be straight or angled tubes. Okay. Everything in the human body is either domed or tubish, right? And it's how you put those pieces together.
Okay. Okay, I can see that. That makes sense.
So the hand, right? There's no domes on hands unless you want to put the end of your mitten closed, right? So there's the dome part. Around the fingers is a tube. You leave a blank spot for your thumb. You just make this part, the next tube, a little wider, wide enough that there's going to be space to stick a thumb through. And then it's another tube and dome for a thumb.
Okay.
Start with wrists.
Start with the wrist. Do some lovely little wristlets.
Make a zillion freaking wrist warmers and then just start working your way up the hand and you'll figure it out, I promise.
Okay.
Because socks work the same way, right? There's just no thumb hole for socks, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just used to the construction being different enough that it's yeah, like again, my brain is trying to build on top of.
Start with tubes. Start thinking with tubes, right? Round and round. So you've got a tube for your wrist. And then it gets slightly wider for the rest of the hand. And if you forget to put a thumb hole in, you can cut one. Nobody cares. Nobody will know. You can cut a space for the hole. You can cut your little thumb hole and then add another tube to it for your thumb. Or you can do them completely fingerless.
And it really won't unravel?
And then move up to fingerless gloves.
Okay. I think I can try.
The glorious thing about using wool is if your stitches are loose or your piece has gotten kind of big, felt it.
On purpose?
On purpose.
Oh, actually, my dad's been asking for some more cast iron cookware gloves for, you know, the things that you slide, the sleeves, not gloves, sleeves. So maybe I should do that as my first project.
Oh, that goes on the handles? Like the little handle?
Yeah.
Perfect. You've got a little dome and a sleeve.
And felting. It's perfect.
And felting. And everybody I have ever given Nalbinded socks to, the bottom of that sock will felt. You can't avoid it. It's going to do it.
Okay. Good to know.
And if you look at historic pieces, that's what they do. You can't. It's the sweat of your feet. It's that constant motion as you're walking. All bound socks will felt, and they'll felt to you on the bottom.
Excellent. I can see it being super useful.
Yeah. So again, if your piece is too big, if your stitches are a little loosey-goosey, felt it. Hell, I mean, throw it in the washer. You're just experimenting. Okay. Don't be afraid to experiment. I can do that.
And then turn it into an AMS project and be like, and this is where I failed.
We learn from failures, though, don't we? Right? That's the whole point.
Yes, I know. Just in the midst of the failure, I don't take it very well. So, but it does look like we are at about 3 o'clock. So, did you have any further words of wisdom or anything that we failed to cover that you had hoped to talk about?
No, that's pretty much it. It's just being stubborn and don't be afraid to screw it up and throw it on the floor and step on it a few times and give it to the cat or whatever. Don't start with your, such and such hen spun this wool for me the first time. Save that for later.
Sounds like a good plan.
Go to Goodwill, buy the cheap wool, and make stuff for your pets or your stuffed animals or your cat or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just start making things. One of my very first projects was for I found these baby mice, these orphaned baby mice. And I literally Nalbinded them a little nest. You know, you see those pet things, like they're the big old, somebody has felted a big old nest for like chihuahuas. I did the same, but like mouse size.
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh.
Just work. All you got to practice. This is one of those skills. This is one of those that you have to practice. And you're not going to be good at it first thing out of the gate. I know there are some people that are like, if they cannot get that success immediately, they never go back. You're never going to get this if you're not be afraid to fail. Fail gloriously. Throw it in the yard. Give it to birds.
And then dance. Yeah.
It's okay. Be absolutely
So when we're
proud of your failures, and then be like, look, I learned not to do this.
That's true. That's true. So when you're talking about practice, is like 5 minutes a day a good range, or are we,
Until your brain starts to fizz. whatever your personal limit is.
Okay.
I am a substitute teacher, so I get a lot of downtime. I get stuck with, prep periods that I don't use. So
Right.
the best thing about Nalbinding is it's portable.
Yeah.
You can take it with you anywhere. And
Okay.
you got 5-10 minutes to yourself, practice. You got an hour, practice, whatever you want to do with it. But unless you're willing to put some time into it, you're not going to learn it. This is just one of those skills that you have to learn your own, how big your stitches are going to be when you enlarge and how to bring them down. There's again, it's all about how big your thumb is and how big your needle is and how big your yarn is. It's not like you have to count with knitting. You just keep going until it's the right size with Nalbinding. And if it's not the right size, you either cut some of it off or you shrink it with some hot water. It's very nebulous. And I think that's what scares some people, is you have to be willing to just play with it and see how it's going to behave for you.
Okay. It's a lot like rectangular construction in that, because it's easier, but like you said, more nebulous in a lot of ways. And
it depends on the body you're putting it on.
Yes. Mine's very tubular and dome shaped, so it should be fine.
See, tubes. It's all about tubes and domes.
I'm set. Well, excellent. And thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through this. I will now feel obligated to actually practice, so the next time I see you, I'll be able to go, look. I didn't knit this one. Look at the huge error I made right there. But at least I will have something. So I appreciate your time.
I'm always available. I mean, it takes 5 minutes to sit down with me and reaffirm the practice.
Yeah, I understand. And you'll probably get stuck with me at least once. So,
Not a problem.
Once more, I should say. Well, thank you again. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm about to load up kids in the car and head home. So we'll see what happens.
Drive safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.